Hello, everyone. It is time for the fourth conversation about House of the Dragon with my man Sheikh. This is again no Fire and Blood spoilers, so we won't be talking about what's gonna be happening. We are gonna probably start talking about if Fire and Blood happens, of like those events have been covered, we'll talk about it, but we won't be spoiling future seasons. If you have read Fire and Blood and want to hear that, there is also going to be an episode over on this gentleman's channel. Sheikh, you can, joining me as he always does, you can introduce yourself, although they should know who you are at this point.
Yeah, I think at this point probably you've been watching, but yes, I also have a channel where I talk about books. Although it's House of the Dragon channel right now. Yeah, so that's all. I think we should start with the episode.
Yeah, and he's more qualified for this because he's a TV show channel, and I'm a book channel. He's staying in his lane. So this is for Mushroom's favorite episode, episode 4 of House of the Dragon. He's like
by far.
He really enjoyed this episode. He's just like, yes. But he was very disappointed when Daemon and Rhaenyra didn't actually have sex. But he's just gonna say they did because he does what he wants. He probably said. I think his version of stories was like more. I forget what his version of.
I'll tell you his whole story, and it's more. I don't know if it's more screwed up, but it's screwed up.
Anyway, what do you think of the episode?
I liked it overall. Like, I was a bit conflicted. I was conflicted if it was my favorite or not. It's an easy 9 out of 10. So conflicted in the sense I don't know if I like it as much as 3 and 1. I did like it more than 2. I think in terms of character work, it's probably the best. I was worried with certain decisions that they made that I think kind of, if they follow up on the decisions they make later on, I think it will be one of the episodes that stand out later on more. I think especially with what they did with Kristen, Daemon, and Rhaenyra, I think they've made a choice, and now they have to make the future relationship dynamics make sense.
Yeah, my favorite thing about this episode is how much irony there was, where
Yes.
Otto, for example, is guilty of being a scheming jackass and wanting Aegon to be on the throne, and not putting that his grandson being on the throne over the actual health of the realm, although he would say Aegon being on the throne is for the health of the realm, but he does not have he's trying to work against what the king wants in that way. So he's guilty, but the thing he's getting ejected for is not something he's guilty for, because he's not lying. That's actually what he was told. What he was told was slightly incorrect, but I mean, he's relaying what he was actually told. On the other hand, Rhaenyra, again, is guilty, just not guilty of what people are accusing her of specifically.
Do you remember when we were hopefully they don't whitewash Rhaenyra? This time, so I was whoa, they're going the opposite direction.
I mean,
not really,
but they're being pretty faithful, I think, to Book Rhaenyra.
But being faithful to Book Rhaenyra means not whitewashing her.
Correct. Correct. Yes. Book Rhaenyra, not a paragon of moral virtue. No one in this story is a paragon of moral virtue. If you guys are waiting for the Ned Stark to show up, you're gonna have to keep waiting quite a while, because no,
have to wait until Ned Stark.
You have to wait until Ned Stark. Yeah. Maybe they can wait until Aegon 5. I like Aegon 5.
I like
good old
Aegon 5. There's a bit of a question mark at the end, but
yeah, that's okay. Hey, Ned has some question marks in there as well. No one's perfect.
Okay, we're already on the tangent, but I'll mention that in the other one. This is random, it's Aegon 5 related, just because you mentioned it.
Yeah,
we should not.
Anyways,
go off.
Don't expect poor paragons of moral virtue at all.
Yeah.
For this story, even less so than the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
There are paragons of virtue-ish in Fire and Blood, they're good people, just not really here. Anyway, so also we talk about how Kristen Cole, you made it, and you're taking such a risk here. Come on, man. And also,
Yeah,
yeah, there was obviously like the power imbalance. I'm kind of like, I don't know what Rhaenyra's recourse was if he'd just been like, no. I mean, the only real things he can really get in trouble with is like if Rhaenyra gets hurt or if he sleeps with her. So I don't know if she can like blackmail him because he's doing the
yeah,
thing, like the one thing he can get in trouble for, basically.
yeah, and like you can make the argument that like his position actually makes him obliged to do the opposite of what he did. Like, because the argument is basically like Rhaenyra is his boss, more or less, so he can't say no. But I feel like it's not that simple. Like, yes, the power imbalance is a bit screwed up because he is put in a weird position, but also his job is to protect her, right? Like, it's not to. So he's putting himself and her in danger by sleeping with her. So it's like you can argue that he's actually doing the opposite. And I personally like my bigger issue is like I get the whole power imbalance thing. My bigger issue is that I don't think that's how the scene was staged at all. Like it didn't feel like yes, Kristen did say no at the start, but the whole scene took like I would assume taking off the armor took like 40 minutes.
It took a while, yeah.
So actually, the actor did an interview with the official podcast, and he actually said like when he has to go to the bathroom, it's a half an hour process for him to like. Everybody's like, okay, yeah, we have to clear the set. He has to go to the bathroom. So it's act. So yeah, I didn't feel like Rhaenyra would be like mad if he said no. I think she was being more playful. But I mean, I get the whole discussion. I just don't think it's as clear cut as saying it was completely consensual or it was completely like I've seen people say it's rape, and if you don't call it rape, you're a bad person. I didn't feel that it was supposed to be that, but maybe it's just not shot properly. I don't know. It's a bit weird because his main conflict came when he was taking off the cloak, right? And they focused like really on when he took off the cloak, like, symbolizing that it's basically his vows that he's fighting with. I didn't feel like he's fighting with the fact that oh, Rhaenyra is forcing me into this. At least
Yeah,
that's not what I
it's
got.
not like a sleep with me or you lose your job because the only way he can lose his job is by sleeping with her. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess the argument is that if he doesn't do it, she has the power to basically say anything about him that could make him lose his job.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean, they're
But
definitely like
that applies to literally everybody in the realm, though. Like,
that's also true. Also, I just like to say, Rhaenyra was basically told you can marry anyone, and there's basically like 7 people she can't marry, and they're the people of the Kingsguard, and like, come on,
and
like,
all the people at the Night's Watch,
yeah, they're far away though, so.
and I guess the Maesters. I think the Maesters are also.
Oh, okay, yeah, the Maesters as well. There is a Maester in
Yeah.
King's Landing. So there's like 8 people in King's Landing who she's not allowed to marry. There's some people who like he'd get mad at if she married, like if she married like a random commoner, Viserys would just be like, "What are you doing?" But like, there's literally 8 people she is not allowed to have sex with in an entire city, and she has sex with one of them.
I mean, at this point, she's not allowed to have sex with
Okay,
anybody.
that's true, but she's allowed to
Um,
marry any of them. Like if she had
yes.
sex with anyone else, she'd be like, "Okay, I'll just marry this person." Right?
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, "Yeah, we
Hmm.
totally waited until marriage." Like Westerosi engagements take like a month. Like, yeah.
I don't know. I think a royal wedding probably takes longer than a month to
Viserys got
organize.
married within a month. He was like, "I'm gonna take a wife within the next month." When he married Alicent.
Really?
Yeah. When he was like, "Yeah." They're like I guess yeah, she would probably have a
I,
longer wedding because it's like she's the heir and it's her first wedding. But yeah,
but
she'd get married pretty fast. Like it's not
yeah,
like my point is it's like it's not like wedding here where it's like, oh, I'm gonna live with this person for 3 years and decide if I want to marry
hmm.
them. Westeros is just like, I've decided I'm marrying you, and she's the princess, so that person is just like, okay, like it's not like it's not like she's gonna get rejected. No one is gonna be like, if there's someone rejects her, their parents are gonna be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, don't reject her. Like, yeah. So the only people she's not allowed to marry, there's like 8 of them in King's Landing. Come on, Rhaenyra. Just pick like anyone else.
How did you like that first scene with the pageant of her, or not the pageant, like every, everybody standing in line and being like, "Hey,
Oh yeah,
Choose me.
I thought that was pretty funny.
It
Also, I just like to
was.
say this episode, like it was like the ultimate Westerosi first world problems. Like Rhaenyra literally has it better than like it's like Rhaenyra. It's like, oh, what are your woes, Rhaenyra? And Rhaenyra's like, I have to marry someone and have children. And it's like, okay, so like everyone who's ever lived in your world, and it's like, oh, who you have to marry? Whoever I want. Oh, okay, and like, is it going to be really hard to raise a child? It's like, well, the birthing process will obviously be really difficult because that is by default. But after that, I actually basically can just have anyone take care of them, and I don't really have to do much, to be honest. Like, literally, probably has it better than anyone in Westeros.
Yeah, and like Allison calls her out on it as well, right? Not calls her out, but like in their conversation, she's like, women in this world don't have a choice between two people usually, let alone choose four of them. And yeah, but I mean,
And you
I
can choose
also
anyone except 8 people.
and the funny thing, like I get it from like so when we meet Rhaenyra in this episode, like the two people we see are like a bit weird that they
Yeah,
put
but
themselves
obviously
forward.
some of them were her age. Like they're not all 50 or 10. Like there are
Yes,
there are
yes,
20-year-olds in the realm who of nobility who are like from noble houses who were there. Like
yes. It's funny to me like that nobody thought of Laenor until now. They're like, oh, who would be the best option? We have this one guy who is a dragon rider, has
well,
Valyrian blood,
they thought of
and a son.
Laenor, but Viserys was just like marry whoever you want. So but like yeah,
Yes,
they thought about
yes.
last episode that like Laenor is like the political marriage.
Yeah,
Like
but like that's also like 3 years into like Viserys starting this whole thing, right? Like because he said he for the last 3 years I've been getting like proposals from everywhere. So I'm like, anyway, like the Laenor thing is like the most obvious thing because like
yes.
they're also a fit because of the whole dragon riding thing. Like if
Yes.
you're like who is most mentally aligned with Rhaenyra, it would probably he's the most obvious choice, unless you want to count Daemon,
Also,
which
I just like to point out if Rhaenyra really screwed herself because she was like, okay, I'm gonna pick the hottest person to be a Kingsguard. If she hadn't, then she could be like, who should I marry? Can someone go get Kristen Cole? I almost picked him because he was the hottest, and then I was like, wait a second, this could backfire. But I do remember that.
that long-term thinking.
Yeah, that would be the real plot line if we go back and she picks the ugliest person for the Kingsguard, and then when she has to marry someone, she's like, let's see, who was the hottest person who wanted to be a Kingsguard? Oh yeah. It's
That's funny. I didn't think about that, but that's actually like, why didn't she think of this? Annoying. If she actually picked him for that reason, which she kind of did. At least it's my read is that she did, but
I want it to be true. So
yeah, I mean, she was in that scene in episode 2. She was like, he was the only guy she was nice to. Everybody else, he's just like,
that's true. But
doesn't
yeah,
he? Doesn't he say thanks? And then when
yes,
Kristen is like, hello, Sir Kristen.
it's
Kind of
true.
fun. Anyway, should we talk about Damon?
Sure.
Damon just coming back and like almost threatening Rhaenyra's life by driving by that ship.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, it's a very Damon thing to do. But it's just like, what are you
Also,
doing?
one thing that's kind of funny, I see people thinking like, "Oh, Daemon's got like a Daemon Targaryen master plan," and I'm like, "There is no Daemon Targaryen master plan. Daemon Targaryen, like, he's figuring things out as he goes. Now he's good at figuring things out as he goes. Like he's clever, like, and thinks on his feet, but he's not planning in advance. Like it's not like he's not Doran Martell here. Okay,
See
like
that's I wanted to ask you this actually because I'm a bit more conflicted than you seem to be
okay,
about this whole thing because should we already go into that the
I don't know.
whole okay I mean we can like I just wanted to talk about the throne room scene
Oh yeah,
first
sure.
but like where he comes back and I really like that scene. I didn't like it as much as the book counterpart, but we can talk about that in the other video. But I thought it was really cool, like with everybody just scrambling into the throne room. One nitpick why were the Kingsguard not with Viserys? Like they walk in with everybody else. I'm like, what are you doing? You have one job.
That's true. Not very good Kingsguarding. But to be fair, the Kingsguard are being picked based on attractiveness, so you got to expect some slipping of standards.
Yeah, it was just funny. Like, what are you doing? Why is the king alone? And
It's
like
true.
he was alone with like random people who were like, okay, random servants. So,
True. If
all
one of
right.
that servant had been like an assassin, he probably would have died.
Yeah, I have also another thing. So, okay, Daemon comes back. He proclaims himself as king of the Narrow Sea, kneels to Viserys, and then Viserys walks up to him. Now, okay, first of all, he gave up that hammer. Was like added to the chair, which I thought was funny. Like,
Add a hammer to the chair. That'd be kind of funny.
I will look if they actually added to the chair. Like, I want to see. I hope they do. Like, that would be super funny if they
That would
actually.
be if they just added like a hammer, like in the ground, like sticking out of you. There's just a hammer.
I hope they do that.
That would be hilarious.
Anyway, so Viserys then walks to Daemon using the sword Blackfire as a walking stick. No,
It's
I
Valyrian
mean,
steel. It'll be
it's a
fine.
little bit, but still, I was like, no. I think it was also in a scabbard, but I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it wasn't a scabbard, but also okay. Don't use its actual swords as walking sticks, but it's Valyrian steel. It's not going to break or dull. It's fine.
That's good.
You might stab your foot, but he
Which
gets.
Viserys probably would.
He probably
Yeah,
has to be. Yeah.
that's probably why they put the scabbard on.
I think it's funny every time Viserys is going to have like a serious meeting. He's like, "Bring me a sword," and it's like he always holds it, and it's like,
Yeah, I
"Come on,
actually
Viserys! Like
think
you're not tricking anyone." Like,
so. Again, small details, but so in the first episode, there was no scabbard on that sword.
yeah,
I want to believe that they put the scabbard on because they're like, okay, this guy is cutting himself every day. Let's be careful. Second of all, I think in every public appearance, Viserys is now wearing gloves to hide that he lost two fingers. Like, if you remember in the first episode, like Otto tells the Maesters that nobody should know that he's getting cut by the throne, right? So it seems like they're actually covering his hands that because he lost the two fingers, right?
yeah.
So that's just something I noticed. Like every time he's in public, he has gloves. Even in the last episode and in this episode, like when
Oh,
he's
I didn't notice that.
so it's just small things. Like obviously, I think somebody will say if they noticed last week he also had a slip with the VFX where they forgot to like take out two of his fingers, so he had two green screen fingers in a scene.
That's
Um,
unfortunate.
that happened. Um, maybe it was just some salve for his missing fingers, I guess.
Maybe they're just like this works doubly because they're like, ooh, we can have him wear gloves in public to try and hide that he's lost two fingers, and it can save on our CGI budget.
That's smart.
So very clever, and also like it makes sense that like they don't want to show like, oh, why is this king getting hurt? Because he can't sit on this chair without cutting himself.
Yes, exactly. So now Damon kneels to Viserys, which is expected. Like expected for us because we know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But for me, what was funny, like even though I knew that nothing was going to happen, I was like still on the edge of my seat, being like, Damon has Dark Sister right there. Like he could kill Viserys. Like Kingsguard, what are you doing?
Yeah, when Viserys went
What?
through, all the Kingsguard were just like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? This was not the plan. You said you were going to stay on the Iron Throne. What?" Um, and he was just like, "No, I trust my bro." Then
Yeah,
later, he
but
delivered a vicious ground like liver kick. That was
that kick was nice. Also, like really nice, like juxtaposition between the two scenes, both in the throne room. Like took Damon one day to
to just get
like
absolutely hammered and hung over and like as
yeah,
a complete mess. Yeah.
it was funny though. But did you like that scene between them in the throne room? Like I thought it was quite emotional the way it went. The way it went.
Yeah, I thought that was good. And I also like how like Damon still didn't tell the truth just because like one, it's not a thing he does, and two, he knows Viserys wouldn't believe him anyways.
Mm.
Um, and so he's just like, hey, I wonder if I can use this as an excuse to marry Rhaenyra.
Oh, you mean you're talking about the last? I was
Oh
talking
yeah. Oh,
actually
you mean
about
the
the
first
first
one?
one.
I like the first one as
Yeah,
well too. Yeah.
yeah.
Where I like kind of the show of trust and showing like okay, Damon he's not trying to murder Viserys.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. And I think it was actually like I was probably more on the edge of our seat because we saw Damon pull this move last time, right? Where he was just kneeling in front of somebody, giving up his sword, and then just killed them.
That's
So it
true.
was like,
But this
so
person's a
last,
real king. So,
yes.
well, not that good of a
Okay.
king, but still technically, legally, the king.
Okay, so now we can get into the whole Damon's master plan question mark
There's
thing.
no master plan.
Okay, so there are a few things. Like I agree with you. I don't think he was in on it. I think Missaria was playing him. Um, the whole issue with like the reason why there's a question is one, Missaria was like that kid, that spy.
Yep.
He gave the money to Missaria right in front of Damon, which by itself doesn't need to mean anything. Um, Two, when Damon and Rhaenyra go into that brothel, Damon specifically takes off her hood and just hands it to somebody. Like, why would he do that if he doesn't want them to be seen? Like, they're pretty recognizable people. So that's the second thing. Third thing, that's a very small thing, is in that throne room scene when he gives his crown to Viserys. Like, first of all, it's funny. Viserys is just looking at it. What is this? What is this piece of shit? He's just, and then in that moment, Damon is like looking at Otto like really intensely. I was like, I don't know what exactly that look was about. It's like, is he planning something? Just that looks. I don't think he planned for Otto to be ousted. Like, I don't think that's something that he could have
So,
foreseen.
yeah, if you want to be like,
Um,
Damon has a two-step plan, like, get spotted in Pleasure House, try to marry Rhaenyra. I
yes,
will give the
that's
possibility of two-step plan. I would not describe that as a master plan, but
yeah.
Damon, like, I've seen some people be like, acting like Damon is like Littlefinger, and he's like, he's got this all planned out, and it's like, no,
No,
it's
no,
not
no.
Damon.
Like I think it's exactly what you're saying. Like I could actually see this being like Damon. Now the big question is, does Damon know that Missaria has a full spy network? Like I guess it's possible that he came back to King's Landing and met with her and like set up this plan or something. But I do think that him trying to marry Rhaenyra could be a plan, especially because he like made sure that they would be recognized in that brothel. Like I don't see why that scene would be in there. Like he specifically takes off her hood and takes off his own hood.
It's true. That is true.
So
That's a detail I'd forgotten, but he does do that. That is immensely suspicious. I am willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he might have a two-step master plan. And I'm going to say that's about as close to a master plan as you're going to see for him. And it's also a master plan that has a lot of holes. Like, it's not a very good master plan.
yes,
And it resulted in him getting liver kicked, which, oh,
uh,
that looks painful.
I don't think he cares though. Like also, it just makes me laugh. See, episode 3, Damon. It literally end with him in this triumphant shot, like full of blood, just having won this war. Episode 3, we end him with like sleeping on the floor of the throne room.
It's true. Also, I'm gonna. This is my theory. I think he cut his hair because he had a bunch of like blood and stuff in his hair, and he was like trying to get it out, and it was like a pain. And he was like, "Screw it, just cut it off." And now everyone's just like, "Oh, he has a nice new haircut." And I think in reality,
Yeah,
he was just like, "This is a pain. Just, I can't get the blood out. Someone's trying to
yes,
brush it. It's just like, that hurts. Just cut it all off." That's my theory.
that's fair. I think it's also will just have short hair now, and then after the time jump, he'll have long hair again. So they'll be like,
That's also probably going to be a thing.
so time passed. It took him 10 years to grow his hair out, apparently.
And one day
Time.
to get a bunch of blood in it.
Okay, so do you have anything else about the Damon plan? um, like we can actually talk about that, like whole excursion to Flea Bottom. Like this episode is called King of the Narrow Sea. It should be called Lord Flea Bottom. Like
True. Okay, that might be their name. But the thing is, they want King of the Narrow Sea because they're going to be like, oh, this is like the conflict. It's the clickbait title. Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just like to like come up with alternate titles that actually describe the episode. That's why.
Okay, Lord of Flea Bottom would make more sense.
But yeah. So he number one he knows about the secret passages. Like we saw that in the first episode, right? Like he was spying on the small council scene. That
yes.
like I thought it was funny that like he just leaves this map like there is a secret passage for Rhaenyra, and she's just like, rather than being worried, oh fuck, anybody could walk into my room. She's just like,
I
hey,
mean, she's not known for her caution. And also, like, come on, if someone left a map to a secret passage in your room, you'd be like, wait, is there really a secret passage? And then you'd be like,
I'd be
what's
scared.
down there?
I'd be scared.
I'd be scared, but I'd want to know as well. Also, Rhaenyra is not known for her caution, so
she is not. But I was just like, her first reaction was like, "Let's go in there." She was like, "Yes, this is what I want." Also, this whole passage is a bit risky because the way leads through that room where Balerion skull is, and I'm like, what if Viserys is chilling there?
It's late at night. Viserys
that would, but it would be funny.
It would be funny. That's true.
Like, what are you doing? Go back.
She'd be like, I just want to see Balerion's skull.
Dressed like a commoner.
Yeah, they're comfortable clothing, you know?
And Viserys would probably buy it. Like
Rhaenyra's just like, I'm trying to be a trendsetter. I'm trying to set a fashion trend at court.
Yes.
I very like you know, no, I think people dress very arrogantly, and I think people will really appreciate this more like mellowed down dressing style and hat.
Yes,
the hat's a big part of it. You can't lose the hat. You know, yes. Viserys would be like, oh, such bad fashion. Terrible.
Anyway, okay, so then we see this. Okay, they get to Flea Bottom, and then we see this theater play, which I really liked. I don't think the theater play was that well put up, but I think it fits Flea Bottom.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a very good like play, but I mean, it's Flea Bottom. Yeah. Are you expecting Shakespeare? Like,
yeah, but I mean, they've got the point across, which is they do not want Rhaenyra. Interesting. Which also I'm like, Rhaenyra, you have given them no reason.
That's true.
To make them want you. I like that's also one of the things I'm like, you're already trying to be the first queen of the realm. Like people will already be like somewhat opposed to it. You know that people want your brother on the throne. And all you're doing, like you're just offending people all the time, like with the marriage proposals and stuff. Sorry. Rather than being like, I should make some alliances with these great houses and try to get more people on my side. She's just like making fun of Lord Dondarrion. They're leaving a line of 20 people who are waiting to talk with her.
Yeah, I mean, they could just be like, they were like, oh, she can't be queen because she doesn't have a dick. They could have just been like, she can't be queen because she's completely neglected all of her duties.
Which is what Viserys said last week to her.
Yeah, like, you know, if you, try and get some support, Rhaenyra. Like, the funny thing is, like, she's very entitled. Like, despite thinking she's going to lose the throne, she's very, like, her only reason in her head why she should get the throne, like, isn't that she'd be a good queen. It's just that, like, she's like, well, I have the bloodlines, you know? Which it's funny because, like, Precedent would have Aegon be the heir, but she's, like, very much decided that, like, it's just hers. Like, she doesn't have to do anything to be worthy of being queen. Queen is just something that should be handed to her, and if it isn't, she's wronged.
That's interesting because I feel like, so in episode 2, when she's talking with Viserys, I think like that. So episode 2, we saw her being like, basically being a good ruler, right? Like she was saying the right things. She was solving issues. Like she solved that whole bridge scene without bloodshed.
Yeah, that was good.
She came back to Viserys, and like Viserys told her, "Hey, I have to remarry," and she was like, "This is a quote." She said, "You're the king. Your first duty is to the realm." So she realizes that thing. Same episode, she has that talk with Rhaenys, where Rhaenys is like, hey, the order of the things are that the male will inherit, and she's like, I will create a new order. So in episode 2, we at least she seems like she has some plan and knows at least somewhat what she should be doing. In episode 3 and 4, it really seems like she's already lost touch with that idea. Like she
definitely has, and I think she's just very frustrated and kind of angry that like one Viserys like married her friend, and now everyone is just expecting like Aegon to be king, and instead of being like, well, everyone's expecting Aegon to be king, I should try like doing things well. She's just kind of spazzed a little bit and talked about how unfair her life situation is and her Westerosi first world problems.
Yeah, and like, so one thing that really struck me is basically Damon is like, they would want Aegon to be the heir, and her response is like, their wants are of no consequence, which I think is like, and Damon answers, they are of great consequence if you expect to rule them one day, which, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I almost spoiled the book thing. But this made me think of something, and one thing I hate this episode for, it made me go back to watch the season 8 finale of Game of Thrones, because I was like, wait.
What did you go watch the season 8 finale for?
Just one. Just one.
Okay.
A very big scene. So season 8, last episode, very end, spoiler, which I guess most people don't care about anyway.
It's not good enough that it matters if it gets spoiled anyway. Like,
this is the throne room scene when Dany has just burned the city. Jon goes in there. And Dany's basically convincing him, hey, like, I know what's good. Like, yeah, we'll just build a new world based on like what we think is good. And Jon answers, hey, what about everyone else? All the other people who think they know what is good. And Daenerys answers, they don't get to choose. Which I thought was a very, very close. Like I went back because I thought she said the exact same line, that their wants are of no consequence.
oh, okay.
That's why I went back. I was like, wait, did they use the same line? But it's not the same line, but it's pretty close, I would say. Like in terms of obviously, like Daenerys has just burned down the city.
Like, hey, can we let the person who doesn't commit unnecessary war crimes decide what's good? Just saying.
Like Rhaenyra is talking about like them not wanting a female heir, so it's a bit of a different context. But it's interesting that she already seems like that. I mean, that's something a tyrannical person would say, right? Like, she's more close to season 8 Daenerys than she is to season 8, episode 3 Daenerys, even.
Fast character arc. Yeah.
Let's not go there. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Okay, then this whole scene is juxtaposed with the Viserys Alicent scene, which sad.
Yes. Yeah, which was pretty like disturbing from the top because he's like kind of falling apart and just like, yeah, like the contrast of the two scenes, which I will say, haven't brought it up. Compared to the Game of Thrones show, the sexy times are shot way better.
I agree.
Like from an actual storytelling perspective, instead of just being like,
and also from a being tasteful perspective.
Yeah, they're like way more tasteful. Yeah, exactly.
Also, the director of this episode was a female, so I think
I've seen, and it's by far better than any of the direction of like the sexy times in Game of Thrones, and it isn't close.
Yeah, it's not even that close. Like, it's actually shot like not to linger on unnecessary stuff. Like I really like that. Like they focus on the faces, not on everything else. Like they focus on like Rhaenyra's reactions to stuff rather than.
Yeah, it doesn't just feel like it's like, hey, we need our 2 boob quota in this episode. Okay, yeah, all right, we got that in. It doesn't feel like that at all. And that's, I think, for spoiler free. I mean, we're running out of time for spoiler free.
Yeah.
I'd give this also a 9 out of 10. We're 4 straight 9 out of 10s. I think 3 is still my favorite, but then this would be close with the others.
Yeah, so I think for me, like 2 is definitely my least favorite. Like that's the only one I've given 8.
I really like 2.
Like the thing is, I'm 3, 1, and 4 are really close. I think 3 is my favorite. I think this would be better than 1 if 1 didn't have that last scene. I really love that last scene in episode 1. Like,
it's true, the last scene was pretty fantastic.
I watch it almost every day because I love the music in that scene.
Of course you do.
So I have a slight bias, but like I love it. I think the setup it has been amazing. We've been talking about this that like this isn't the part that's the interesting part. Like, okay, this whole Daemon Rhaenyra Crispin thing was the first part. That's like the first major interesting thing that happens in the book.
That's
in
true.
this particular
especially if he has mushroom
story. Sorry. But yeah, so I think the setup hasn't good. I think next episode will be Have you seen the preview?
Yeah,
The next
yeah, I always
episode?
watch the previews. I can't not watch them.
Next episode feels like it'd be somewhat of a mini season finale, is what I've been saying, because it's the last episode with the younger actors.
Yeah.
So they'll change the Rhaenyra and Alicent, and also the Laenor and Lena actors.
Yeah, it's
So
like
yeah,
it's the
and
end of the opening. The right now we're all in the
yeah,
opening of the chess game. Everyone's like trying to get their pieces where they want, and that's gonna end, and we're gonna go into the middle game. It's gonna be a long middle game. It's gonna be like a 4-season middle game or something.
yeah. I really looking forward to see. Like, I've seen a lot of people who are like worried. They're like, I don't want the young Rhaenyra to leave.
I
And
mean,
I'm like,
I get it because like the young actors killed it, right?
I agree. I agree.
Like they did
it's
a
incredible.
fantastic job. So
Yes.
obviously, in hindsight, like if the older actors end up being like that's gonna either look really smart or really dumb in hindsight. Because
Mm.
if the older actors aren't as good, then people are gonna be like, yeah, keep young Rhaenyra. But like if the older actors are also brilliant,
Mm.
then it could be a
Like,
thing in like 10 years. Like, can you imagine people saying like they didn't want this Rhaenyra? Like,
yeah. The thing is, like, the older actors were cast first. Like Rhaenyra, Alicent, like the older versions. So Olivia Cook and Emma Darcy and Paddy Considine were the first three people who were cast for the show. And they said they spent months trying to find the correct younger versions for Rhaenyra and Alicent. So I would assume, like, the casting has been
it's
outstanding in this
been
whole show.
stellar. Yeah.
Like,
So I'm
I
expecting it
don't,
to be also stellar for older.
yeah. So I would be surprised actually if like the older versions aren't at least as good. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll be
I've been
shocked.
impressed. I'm actually impressed. Like Millie Alcock, obviously, like as Rhaenyra has been, yeah,
Oh yeah.
incredible. But I think Alicent as well, like Emily
Yeah.
Carey, she has been doing a really good, like subtle job at like actually getting the character across. And yeah, anyway, we should stop because
Yeah.
Zoom does its thing with the less
Yes.
than a minute.
Yeah, I agree. The acting across the board, I can't think of a performance I don't think has been really good. And I expect that to continue because I don't see why it wouldn't. That is going to be it for no Fire and Blood spoilers. If you do want us to talk about it with Fire and Blood spoilers, you can head over to Sheikh's channel. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye, everyone. And we might be do these live in the future. We'll think about it.